be doing an updated tier list ranking every single card in Clash Royale after the recent balance update. So if you want to know what the best and worst cards are in the game, in my opinion, make sure you stick around. So jumping on into it, we have 6 tiers on our list today, ranging all the way from S tier, the strongest cards in the game, down to D tier, the absolute weakest. And the first card to be ranked today is going to be the Arrows, a very effective spell for clearing out all other swarms. In my opinion, an A+ card. You can never really go wrong having arrows in your deck. The Giant got a nice little health buff in the recent balance update, I believe increasing his health by 4%, and the Giant was already pretty strong in a couple of top tier strategies, especially Giant Graveyard, and now with more health it is even stronger, which is why I'm ranking it an A+ card. The Goblin Gang, however, going to be down here on the B tier, average tier. I believe there are better options that exist in the game right now than the Goblin Gang, like Skarmy and Guards are extremely strong right now. The Pump, oh boy, this is in my opinion one of the weakest cards in the game, going all the way down here at D tier. It is very hard to effectively pull the Pump off because almost all spells in the game give your opponent a positive elixir trade, making it very hard to successfully pull off. The Goblin Hut down here at C tier, ever since they changed basically all of these spawners, a lot of them have been very weak since that change. The Battle Healer over here going to be a C tier card as well. Battle Ram, B tier, a little bit below the Goblin Gang. However, the Giant Skeleton, another weak card. Unfortunately, the Giant Skeleton did get nerfed many balances ago. Basically, it doesn't destroy anything right now, which was the whole purpose of using the Giant Skeleton. I want to know what you guys think. What should they do to buff the Giant Skeleton? I had an idea that maybe they give Giant Skeleton splash damage. Hey, because hear me out here. I know it's a crazy idea, but think about it. The Giant Skeleton is absolutely massive, and the size of the Giant Skeleton's fist ought to be able to hit more than one skeleton at a time. I'm not saying give it massive splash damage like a Mega Knight, but maybe allow it to hit like 2 or 3 skeletons at a time instead of just one, because that guy's got a pretty big fist. Why is he only hitting one target at a time? I don't know, just a random thought there. The Furnace, similarly to the Goblin Hut, is another weak card in my opinion. They used to be the most busted buildings in the game, but they were nerfed 2 balances ago and now are pretty weak. Cannon, similarly, going to be a weak card right in front of the Battle Healer. It only really ever works in that 2.6 hog cycle, which honestly is very tough to use successfully as well, especially as you push up and higher in trophies. Archer's going to be a B tier average card. The Goblin Barrel going to be at the top of the B tier here. A pretty good card in Clash Royale, but definitely not broken or overpowered in any way, in my opinion. Expo over here, definitely on the bottom end of the B tier list. By the way, what? I'm also ranking the cards individually within a tier, so the higher or lower they are within that tier determines their relative power, in my opinion.
Around me are familiar faces.
The Snowball, another A+ strong card. For the most part, all of these spells in the game are very effective, and the Snowball has the added utility of that knockback and slow, making it an A+ card. That spell down here, a little bit lower than the Snowball, but I think more versatile than obviously a Giant. Elite Barbarian. These guys are absolutely insane. A+ card, very effective both on offense and defense, high damage output, and very punishing as well. Fireball, by far in my opinion the best spell in the game. Knockback, high damage output, and overall you just never go wrong with this Fireball in your deck. Fishy Boy, gonna be an A+ card, maybe on the lower end of the A+ list here. Earthquake, let's go lower end of A+. Actually, no, let's go upper end of A tier. Breezy Spell, gonna be B tier average. It basically only ever is used in that Lumberjack Balloon Freeze deck. There's a few graveyard decks that use it, but they aren't as effective or versatile as that Balloon Freeze, which can be very punishing. The Skeleton King, all the way up here at S tier. It took a while, but Skeleton King is dominating right now in Clash Royale. When the champions first launched, the Skeleton King appeared to be one of the weakest champions in the game. But honestly, since then, the win rates and the use rates of the Skeleton Kings have skyrocketed, and it is one of the most effective champions in Clash Royale, especially after the Golden Knight nerf. More discussion on that later on in the video. But I definitely think the Skeleton King is one of the S tier cards in Clash Royale right now. Bully Boy over here, A+ tier. Bomber, A tier in my opinion. Goblin Kid is going to be A tier. Electro Dragon going to be A tier as well, on the lower end of A tier though. Fly Machine definitely going to be on the higher end of A tier. Archer Queen, another S tier card, a little bit higher than the Skeleton King. Despite the nerf in the balance update, it is still by far one of the strongest cards in the game. There is a reason why almost every deck on the top of the leaderboard has an Archer Queen in there, because she is that busted. Goblin Giant going to be on the higher end of the B tier list. Goblin Drill, same thing, higher end of B tier, but lower than the Goblin Barrel. Execution is going to go on the higher end of the C tier over here. The Wizard, unfortunately, is on the lower end of the C tier. Here's the thing with Wizard. It costs 5 elixir. Yes, it does dominate on like mid to lower ladder, but as you push up in trophies, you will face less and less wizards as frequently, and there is a reason for that. There are better options that exist to put into your deck. Lone Spell over here going to be on the lower end of B tier. Elixir Golem right here next to the Battle Healer. Both of these cards are very, very weak in the meta right now and have been weak for a very long time. Personally, I want to see a bit of a rework for both of these cards to bring them back into the meta without making them broken again. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of the Battle Healer and the E-Golem? How should they change them, if they should, or should they stay dead cards in Clash Royale? Moving on to Goblins, definitely going to be on the upper end of the weak tier as well. Just for the most part, you're better off using guards in your deck or the Spear Goblins as well. Bomb Tower, going to be on the higher end of the B tier list. Golem, definitely higher end of B tier. It's not one of the best win conditions in Clash Royale right now, but honestly, it's still decent if you are using a Golem deck. Electro Giant way up here with the Elite Barbarians. This card is an absolute beast. If your opponent does not have a building in their deck, it can be very, very punishing. But if they do have a building in their deck, it can feel impossible to break through. So it is a bit of a matchup dependent card, but overall, it's pretty busted. Graveyard, definitely an A+ card, especially in the current meta. Just very, very punishing when paired up, especially with that Giant who got a buff as well. Electro Spirit is an S tier card. Elixir Efficient, Chain Reset, a little bit of damage as well. Overall, very, very versatile. Same thing with Fire Spirit, but not as strong as the Electro Spirit. I'm going to rank it right here. In between the arrows and the Zap spell. The guards. I personally believe the guards are very underappreciated, very, very effective, good distraction, and because of the buff they got a couple of balances ago, their damage output is absolutely insane. They stop a Hog Rider with only one shot to your tower for a +1 elixir trade, and they distract things like P.E.K.K.A.s, Princes, high damage units as well. Overall, very, very versatile and strong card. Heal Spirit, gonna be on the lower end of the A tier. Balloon, ooh. Ever since the Balloon was changed, I believe it is now an A tier card. Not as busted as it once was, but still overall a fairly good card. Definitely on the kind of higher end of the A tier right here. Dark Goblin is gonna be an A+ tier card right here. Basically in front of the Bowler, but probably below. Actually, you know what? Let's go in front of the Fisherman. Reminder, I am ranking the cards individually within the tier as well. So the higher it is on the tier, the better it is in my opinion. Firecracker over here, gonna be on the very low end of the B tier. Hog Rider, definitely on the higher end of B tier as well. Same thing with the Goblin Barrel and the Goblin Drill. The Hunter, I believe Hunter is back in the meta. Maybe not as OP as it once was because of different meta changes, but overall, a pretty good card. Let's go right here in front of the Bomber. Icy Golem, pretty good card as well. Right here in the middle of the pack on the A tier. Ice Spirit. I would say Ice Spirit is probably one of the weakest spirits in the game right now, just because it doesn't really have a use case. For the most part, you're better off using an Electro Spirit than the Ice Spirit, because the E-Spirit still stuns, but it has the chain effect as well, making it a bit more versatile. Personally, I think the Ice Spirit should get a small little buff in the duration of the stun to help differentiate it from the Electro Spirit, but definitely be here on the middle of the B tier. Ice Wizard definitely be an A tier, good card in my opinion. Ever since they added the spawn damage to the Ice Wizard, way more versatile. You can use it, for example, on defense against a graveyard to destroy it. Just overall a pretty effective card. Inferno Dragon, way up here at the higher end of the A+ tier. Just melts all of those heavier units and basically always forces a response out of your opponent. Very, very effective card. Inferno Tower, however, even though it did get buffed, it is still outshined by the Inferno Dragon, because the Inferno Dragon basically does what the Inferno Tower does, but has the added utility of being able to counter push and get to your opponent's tower to apply pressure. The Knight, A+ tier, very, very good stats for his cost. Lava Hound, A+ tier as well, but on the lower end in my opinion. Lightning Spell, gonna be on the higher end of the A tier. Pretty effective, especially against champions, but I think you're, for the most part, better off using a Fireball in the majority of decks, with a few exceptions. Zappies, lower end of the A+ tier. The Lumberjack gonna be on the middle here of the, actually the lower end of A tier. Maybe right behind the, right in front of the Electro Dragon. Baby Dragon way up here at the top of the A+ tier. Honestly, Baby D, you can never go wrong. Almost any strategy can benefit from having the Baby Dragon in their deck. Tanky unit, flies, and does splash damage. Very, very effective. And honestly, because the Baby Dragon exists, it's part of the reason why the Wizard is so low, because the Baby Dragon is almost a better card in almost every aspect. One less elixir, more tanky, and still has decent splash damage as well. Bandit way up here at the A+ tier. Hopefully they can fix the Bandit bug sometime in the next decade, but it is still an A+ card. Magic Archer, definitely on the higher end of A tier as well. Maybe the lower end of A+ tier, honestly. Cannon card. Ooh, Cannon card. In my opinion, this might be a controversial opinion. I think Cannon Cart is one of the best cards in the game and one of the most underappreciated cards as well. The Electro Wizard way up here, top end of A+ tier. Mega Knight are going to be on the lower end of the A+ tier as well. Mega Minion, very, very good card. Not OP, not underpowered, but, you know, higher than average. Miner is going to be over here on the higher end of the A+ tier as well. Mini P.E.K.K.A. now, because of the buff, is a good card. I'm going to rank it a little bit higher than the Ice Golem, but lower than the rest of these cards down here, just because these cards are a bit more versatile than the Mini P.E.K.K.A. is. The Golden Knight, oh boy. The Golden Knight, honestly, used to be an S tier card, but because it was over nerfed in the balance update, in my opinion, it has fallen all the way down here to the lower end of the A tier. I think the Golden Knight was a little bit over nerfed, but hopefully they can bring back some of that buff later on in the future balance update. Minion Horde way down here at the lower end of the C tier. Just very, very hard to effectively pull off, and almost any card in the game can give your opponent an elixir value against the Minion Horde. Minions, however, A tier card, right up here with the Electro Drag. Mirror is going to be another D tier card. Is only really ever used in troll strategies and very, very hard to pull off effectively and consistently across a wide variety of battles. Mortar, lower end of A+ tier, maybe higher end of A tier right here. Barbarian Barrel, way up here. A+ tier at the top of this list right here. Very, very effective card. Mother Witch is going to be on the higher end of B tier, but honestly has fallen quite a bit since that last nerf in the previous balance update before this one. Musketeer rising all the way to the lower end of A+ tier. That damage boost is absolutely insane, and she is a very effective card, and honestly a good substitute for the Archer Queen if you don't have the champion unlocked yet. Night Witch, however, way down here at C tier. This might be a controversial opinion, but I believe the Night Witch is the weakest witch in the game right now because they removed that death spawn. I believe she needs a bit of a damage buff for the witch portion herself, but overall I think she's kind of just in a weak spot right now. P.E.K.K.A. up here on the middle of the A tier list. Poison Spell down here, lower end of A+ tier, right next to the Fire Spirit in front of the Giant. Dark Prince gonna be here, middle of the pack of the A+ tier. Princey Boy is gonna be here on the lower, or you know what, let's go like higher end of the A tier. Princess, B tier, right there. Rage Spell is gonna be on the lower end of B tier. Ram Rider, yo, this card's insane. Lower end of A+. The infinite snare to actually destroy your opponent's win conditions, like slowing down golems or giants or balloons or hogs, is very, very versatile and effective. And for a win condition to have that utility is absolutely insane. When you're limited to 8 cards in a deck, the extra utility is always useful. Rascals are gonna be on the higher end of the A tier. Farm Hut, definitely one of the weakest cards in the game. Rocket gonna be up here on the B tier. Royal Delivery, lower end of the A tier. Royal Ghost way up here at the higher end of A+. I personally believe that Royal Ghost is secretly overpowered and could be due for a nerf, in my personal opinion. Just a very, very strong card. Royal Giant on the higher end of the A tier right now. Boom, there we go. Royal Piggies, same thing, higher end A tier. Royal Recruits right here next to the Hunter. Skarmy. I'm gonna go Skarmy right here in the A tier as well. Same thing with Skeleton Barrel. Very, very good cards. Not overpowered in my opinion, but still above average and good. Skeleton Dragon gonna be up here on the B tier. Skeletons, another S tier card. Honestly, you can never go wrong having skeletons in your deck. Even though they are very fragile, the amount of different things you can do for one elixir cost, damage output, distraction, pulling units to opposite lanes, their versatility and utility makes them a very good option in Clash Royale. So despite having low damage, because they only cost 1 elixir, they are an insanely valuable card. Barbarians here, B tier card. Sparky, lower end of A tier. Spear Goblins, another S tier card. Tessa Tower, let's go lower end of A tier because it did get nerfed. Log Spell, once again up here in the A plus tier. Not quite as good as Barbarian Barrel in my opinion, but still a good card. Three Musketeers, gonna be on the higher end of A tier now because of that recent buff. Tombstone, ooh, right here, S tier. This might be another hot take, but I believe the Tombstone is the best building in the game, and I am honestly surprised it did not get nerfed in that recent balance update. It spawns skeletons out so quickly and offers insane distraction for the 3 elixir cost, and I believe the Tombstone is a large reason why the Skeleton King is so dominant right now, because the Tombstone not only is a distraction, but it basically instantly charges up your Skeleton King as well, and the majority of decks that use Skeleton King also have a Tombstone in there. NATO, another S tier card, one of the most broken cards fundamentally in Clash Royale, hands down. Just absolutely busted from the bare bones of how the card actually works. Just actually bonkers. Valkyrie gonna be way up here at the higher end of, lower end of A plus tier. Honestly, slap a Valkyrie into your deck, she destroys basically almost anything in Clash Royale. She's actually busted. Wall Breakers, higher end of A tier. Very, very hard card to use, but very, very powerful if you have the skill to use it, which is gonna be right here in front of the Night Witch, and honestly in front of the Executioner as well. And then finally we have ourselves the Bat. I'm gonna place Bats right here at the higher end of the A plus tier. Overall, very strong card for the 2 elixir cost. But there we are, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, our updated tier list for the 2022 meta after the February balance update. What do you all think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with anything on my list? And if you can make a couple changes, what would you change and why? But that's the end of the video, guys and girls. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We shall see you all in the next one.